We have spoken to you concerning both farming and gardening, and we have intertwined the two slightly because of the idea of micro-farming, or perhaps something that you would wish to call urban farming. While it is true that farms have traditionally used large swaths of land, it is possible with today's building techniques to build a farm that goes upward rather than outward. And that being the case, you create a whole new environment for farming. Now, we would refer to such as micro-farming because at this moment, such is being done in small containers or small rooms and on a small scale. It is similar in respects to the idea of greenhousing. However, the environment is totally and completely controlled. Greenhousing has as of yet to give you a fully controlled environment. But the whole idea of micro-farming or urban farming allows you to have a totally controlled environment for land crops as well as potentially for water crops. This is done by having small cells that are temperature controlled, where full spectrum light is used, or controlled in various spectrums light is used. And you also are able to regulate the humidity and the warmth of what would seem to be the ground or water temperatures. And you are able to grow things in a much greater quantity for the actual land space used. How is this possible? If you think of gardening or farming as using traditional rows, but you make those rows vertical instead of horizontal, and you place rows one beside another in a room, so you would have a walkway between the rows, and you could have multiple walkways. So these rows of vertical gardens would then have, depending on what you are growing, perhaps cardboard, fiber, plant-based materials, or even foams used in place of the soil, where you would nurture the growth of root crops, where you would nurture the growth of normal, everyday crops. As such, you may find that you could have rows and rows of carrots, or parsnips, or potatoes vertically. You could have tomato vines hanging again and again and again vertically, where you would be able to harvest. Now, this means that in a small space, you can place what would take a very large amount of land. And when you think of the fact that you can control the environments, you can heat the soil substitute, you can control the lighting, you can create the perfect growing environment. And since a building can have multiple rooms. You can have what would appear on the outside simply to be an office building be a towering garden, room after room of perfected crops of various kinds growing, so it would take very little land and only a few buildings to supply fresh food and vegetables for an entire town. Even a city comparatively could be provided for with so much less energy usage, so much less land waste, and without the extreme expense of constant transportation. This would allow fresh vegetables to be in the market, and they would be locally grown, even inside a city, inside the most metropolitan of cities. Yes, even places like Beijing and Paris and New York and Los Angeles, you can have fresh vegetables growing throughout the city without using extra land. Farming, as you know it, is becoming obsolete. It is now time for you to consider other methods of food production. And one of meat. We've already spoken of the fact that your desire for so much meat takes away so much land and harms the environment. And it abuses and harms animals. Yet the human body seems to beg for meat because, yes, you have Homo erectus and you have Neanderthal within you, even the Denisovian within you. These require you to eat meat because it is your genetic heritage. But it is not your genetic heritage to be forced to be cruel to animals or to have to destroy your earth in the process. Or your genetic heritage has also given you your brain, your ability to adapt and change, and your ability to think, and your ability to use adaptation to your advantage and to the advantage of your environment and your earth. So now it is time. You think of cloning and you think in primitive concepts, yet meat can be cloned. It can be grown without harm to animals, without harm to people. And there will be scientific breakthroughs necessary. Because when you begin cloning meat, and you can clone various kinds of meat with no harm to animals, and without producing a full conscious animal, but simply by cloning the meat, much like you would clone cartilage to repair your knee, or cartilage to repair your elbow. Much like in the future, you will be able to clone the cells that are necessary to build certain organs within your body. So too can you simply clone meat or muscle and fat tissue, but it will be necessary for you to learn to genetically mix such, because just as monocropping is a bad idea out in the wild, and such can cause a appendance or dependence of the human body, as such it is necessary that meats if grown in such a way, should be varied. Now, on the subject of monocropping, such becomes advantageous when you are doing it in the micro-farming environment or in urban farming. Why is this the case? Because it is closed from the outside world. However, it is still really important that you restore the varied and sundry vegetation to the outer environment of your world. Now, all of this should seem to be common sense, but in the idea of farming and in the idea of marketing and even for restaurant entrepreneurs, this is absolutely revolutionary, and it will be profitable as well as a realistic part of how you can save your environment, how you can participate in defeating global warming, and how you can restore the abundance of plant and wildlife to the earth. We leave you with blessings and with peace. Peace be with each of you.